All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our virtual design review panel meeting. On our agenda today, we have a development proposal at 50 Creighton Road in Dundas. My name is Edward Winter. I'm an urban designer at the City of Hamilton and hosting this meeting. David Cluzio will chair the meeting. In addition to our panel members, we have the applicant team, city staff, members of the public, and media observing today. Members of the public are welcomed here and observe the meeting. However, there's no questions or comments from the public today. This meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to the City of Hamilton's Design Review Panel webpage. And lastly, a reminder to our panelists, please keep your microphones muted while you're not speaking. Thank you everyone for attending. David, please begin when you're ready. Oh, you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Sorry. Good afternoon and welcome. Edward, can you please confirm the session is being recorded?
Yes, I confirm.
Are there any changes to the agenda today?
Note that our second meeting has been rescheduled, but there's no changes for this meeting.
Okay. I'll take silence to indicate that there are no conflicts of interest with any of the panel members. Okay, on the agenda today, as already stated, is the 50 Creighton Road. The lead planner in the file is Jennifer Caterino, who is available to answer any policy questions. And Edward Winter will make a brief presentation. Good afternoon, Edward. We're ready for your presentation. Please keep the presentation under 5 minutes.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep.
With the PowerPoint? Okay. All right. So we have 50 Creighton Road in Dundas. The design proposal is to demolish an existing one-story multi-resident building in order to construct a 12-story residential condominium with 168 dwelling units, 204 parking spaces in a 2-story above grade and 3-story below grade structure, as well as 124 bicycle spaces and 726 square meters of rooftop amenity space. So here we have an air photo of the surrounding area in Dundas, and the subject land shown with a white box and the star. And now zooming in a little bit closer, we see the subject lands are bisected by Spencer Creek, running roughly east to west, and contains a moderate amount of change in grade and topography. And the site is also shared by the Spencer Creek Trail, that's from the northwest corner along Mill Street, and then connects on the west side to the Mill Street open space naturalized area. Looking at some site photographs now, approaching from the northeast, the subject site is just on the far side of the intersection along the right. And here we look into the site from Creighton Road, noting again here there's some change in topography. And then this is Spencer Creek along the right. Okay, and again, proceeding along the Creighton Road, showing the grade sloping up as we go. And then this is from Mill Street, and showing in the right corner here is the trail connection, which crosses the creek at the northwest corner of the property. Okay, and then so here we see the site plan and the trail connecting from Mill Street and then proceeding westward along Spencer Creek. And shown in gray is the proposed building with we see Spencer Creek and the changes in topography noted by the many topographical lines. I think we'll move on from here. We have staff comments and have noted questions and concerns with this development. a reduced buffer zone from the top of bank along Spencer Creek, the loss of affordable seniors housing on the property, height and massing that is not consistent with the adjacent community, and an inactive parking podium for the first and second stories, which doesn't support the pedestrian realm along Creighton Road or the Spencer Creek Trail. So we have some areas for discussion suggested for our members. Does the proposed development build upon the established pattern and built form in the neighborhood and demonstrate an understanding of the character of place, the context, as well as sensitivity to public and private spaces? Does the proposal consider the relationship of height, massing, and scale of the surrounding area and provide appropriate transitions in scale that reflect the existing built natural environments? Third, does the proposal complement the existing function of the neighborhood and contribute to connectivity to support modes of public and active transportation? Fourth, does the proposal include design features that promote the reductions of greenhouse gases, emissions, and other sustainable design features? 5, does the proposal adequately incorporate the linkages into the design to retain the aesthetic and environmental qualities of Spencer Creek and maintain public access to the Spencer Creek Trail and the Mill Street open space area? And lastly, does the proposal conserve, maintain, and enhance the natural heritage and topographic features of this site and area? Okay, that concludes the staff comments.
Okay, we're open for the consultant to provide additional information. Please keep your presentation under 10 minutes.
Okay. Should I share from my screen? From my screen.
Yes, please.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
So my name is Riti Hyder, and I'm a planner at Arcadis, formerly known as IBI Group. I have with me Wayne Harrison, who's architect from KNYMH, as well as Mike Crow from Arcadis, as well as to answer any questions you may have. Just to clarify, the subject lands currently contain a single-story rental housing building with 10 units. It is not a senior rental housing specifically. The proposed site statistics of the development are contained within the table. The total unit count is 168 units, and the proposed maximum height is 12 stories. This is an aerial view of the subject lands and surrounding context. This is a zoomed in aerial of the subject lands. As you can see, Spencer Creek does run directly in the middle of the subject lands, creating a narrow developable area, which really shapes the built form of our building. These are some site photos. And this is a proposed site plan. The design has changed as a result of comments from the formal consultation. At that time, the proposal was for an 11-story residential building, which stepped down at 9 and 2 stories along the southern boundary. The proposal has since been revised to a 12-story residential building, which includes additional step backs at 2 stories and 10 stories along the western boundary, as well as step backs at the 8th, 9th, and 11th stories from Creighton Road. The 12th story does not contain any residential units and has only indoor and outdoor amenity areas. This is a context plan showing the surrounding neighbors. These are the site sections. This is the underground parking plans. This is the first floor plan, second floor plan. I'm just gonna go through these. As you can see on the 12th story, it is just amenity and exterior amenity. These are the elevations. You can see there's different materials being used from the 8th and the 12th stories in an effort to break up the building and reduce the overall massing of the built form. One thing to note is that the city has confirmed that a cultural heritage impact assessment will not be required. These are the building sections. This is a view of the building from Creighton Road and Mill Street. There is a lot of natural vegetation on the site, which masks the height of the building from the surrounding areas. This is at Mill Street and Matilda. This is at Clover Hill, which is south of the subject lands. And this is along Creighton Road and Kemp. As you can see, the natural topography of Creighton and the existing vegetation works to naturally reduce the impact of the overall height of the building, completely masking it behind these trees. This is along McNabb and Market Street. This is along Creighton and Mercer. This is along Mill Street and Napier Street, which again shows the natural vegetation mass impact of the building. And this is the shadow study for March, which shows that majority of the shadows are contained on the subject site itself. That concludes my presentation, and we're available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Turn it over to the panel for clarification questions, and the first person is Dana.
Thank you everyone for your presentation. My question is to Edward. I know in the staff concern section you had noted some issues with the floodplain. Are you able to clarify what those concerns are with the floodplain? Is it where the building is located? Could you maybe provide us some more information on that?
I can attempt to, and then I'll ask perhaps Jennifer to speak as well. The concern from staff related to the distance from the top of bank from the creek, of which is provided as a protection buffer. I think in most cases we're accustomed to seeing 15 meters, and in cases there are reductions of that that we discuss. But I don't know if at this point the 6 meter buffer zone has been accepted by natural heritage staff.
And just to add to Edward's commentary there, I think there's also we just needed some further confirmation about where the flood fringe and the floodway are in terms of the floodplain, just to ensure that we're following official plan policies about no development, where development can occur within the overall floodplain. And also just, we were looking for some confirmation from the Conservation Authority that they were okay with the location of the building, in addition to our natural heritage staff.
And so at this time, that's unknown. There's no comments or feedback from them.
At this point, we don't have it because we normally, well, it's my understanding, Edward, correct me if I'm wrong, but because you've submitted for the design panel to comment on the design of the building, we haven't formally circulated to the Conservation Authority because it's not a formal application yet. But having looked through the FC document, there were comments about working with the Conservation Authority to determine where the flood fringe is actually located. And because I'm also new to the project, I'm not sure of any correspondence from the Conservation Authority that has sort of confirmed that. So I personally also was concerned just about how close the building is and the size of the building and the length of the building that's close to the creek, without knowing the particulars about the floodway and the flood fringe.
Okay, thank you. That's everything for me.
Ted, do you have any questions?
I do indeed. Thank you. And this is a question maybe to Edward as well. I noticed that we're not seeing in this submission a landscape plan or details. We're not seeing shadow studies. We're not seeing wind studies. We're not seeing a transit or traffic analysis, nor current or future context analysis and studies, and which, frankly makes it, is what we are typically used to seeing, makes it harder to assess this. Has there been a change in the requirements for submission, or something that we should be aware of?
I think some of those things, Ted, were provided, the shadow.
Were
and
they? Okay.
Yeah, I think the shadow was there
It's only for the one day, though.
for the March.
And the wind's there, but the traffic and the other questions.
Yeah, the wind was there and was requested and supplied. A traffic study, I don't believe was requested at, well, I shouldn't say that. a traffic study is not normally requested for DRP purposes, except in special circumstances. Yeah, so we haven't changed that, but yeah, so the wind and shadow was part of their submission. Hope that answers your questions.
Yes, sorry, my apologies. I guess I missed a couple of those. Is there a landscape plan provided? Did I also miss that? No.
I don't
Okay.
believe there was. And then this is so. There's been lots of changes with submission documents over the past year. I believe currently a landscape plan is not a requirement for formal consultation, and would be a further submission requirement. So it's not an omission at this point.
Okay, thank you. And maybe if somebody is able to give us a bit of a description of the nature of the Spencer Creek Trail. Does that continue through to Edwards Memorial Park? Is this public access? Is there a by rights public access through this site that's part of this proposal? What is the Mill Street open space? Can somebody comment on those as part of the larger context of this development?
I can sort of comment on that, if I may.
Yeah.
So maybe I can share my screen so everyone has a little bit of. Am I allowed to share my screen?
Sure.
Can everyone see my screen yet?
Yes. No.
Oh, no. How about, oh.
Maybe you don't have authority to. I don't know. Is there something stopping? Oh, there it is.
Okay, perfect. So all of this, this is the property line of our clients. The trail runs this way, and then there's a bridge. So we are proposing public access along the bridge, and this is still public. However, there is no easement or anything within the subject land, on this portion of the subject lands.
Right. And does that trail then connect to the west through that forested space? Is there's something called and it's referenced the Mill Street open space, which is to the west of the site, and then there's a park that it ultimately, I would suspect, this trail terminates. Is that part of? I guess the larger question is the intent for there to be a continued public access and a continuity of that community and natural amenity.
Edward, if you'd like, I can comment on that.
Thank you, Jennifer.
So there is a broader trail along the creek here, and I'm sorry, I have too many things on my screen open, but I will share this map. One sec.
I'll stop sharing my screen.
Me too. Okay, I apologize in advance if something pops up that is not related to this application. So the subject lands are here in white at the corner. And I don't know if you guys can see the dotted lines that we currently have on our mapping that shows the trail. So it's my understanding that there is a bridge over Spencer Creek on the subject lands to the north, and there is some parking, I think, located in the boulevard.
I don't know if you're indicating these things with your mouse, but right now
can you see it?
A red. Oh yeah, now you're zooming in close enough that we can maybe.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
okay, gotcha.
Just wanted to show you how long the trail actually is. So, so this is the subject lands at the corner of Creighton and Mill Street, I believe. And so the dotted line is what the city currently has mapped for the trail. So it goes along Spencer's Creek in this green shaded area, if you can see that. Goes along to the west to a park, Edward Memorial Park, and kind of follows through that. It also goes to the east. So the trail currently is shown as intersecting the subject lands. I think the trail just uses the parking. So people walk through the parking lot and cross the street and continue along this trail that's connected to the Dundas community pool, and kind of continues along all the way along the creek. So there is a larger trail that we definitely want a connection to. The city has indicated through the formal consultation process that the trail can be accommodated on the north side, like to use the bridge that's on the concept plan that the applicants have shown, and to continue the trail sort of either along the north side of the property, and so that it can connect to the trail over here or in our right of way somehow. So those details also need to be worked out as part of the application process, but there is going to be some consideration to the trail location and sort of how that functions and how we secure that. I just know that the city does not want to acquire the bridge as a municipal asset.
Okay, thank you. Can maybe someone describe how there's a pickup and drop off and that actually works within the site? I see a one way in that doesn't seem to have a turnaround. How is pickup and drop off working in this site condition?
Wayne? I think you're still on mute, Wayne, if you are talking.
There we go. Okay, so basically on the site, just to finish off the last part there, I believe with discussions with the owner that yes, there is that the bike is going to be permitted to continue as is across the bridge and connecting to the lands currently to the west, and that's going to be remaining, which is why, and we've also put sort of one of our entrances at that point, so that if people bring their bikes, they can join onto the trail from the building as well, as long as the rest of the people who are already currently using that. Okay, getting on to pickup and drop off. We've not really got into great detail of this. Right now, we're still in sort of the basic massing of the building area there. I would imagine basically at the front entry. Actually, 1 second, I could probably share screen a little bit. Share screen, share. Okay, I don't know if everybody see that at all. No. Okay. Share. Better.
Something's coming up.
There you go.
There you go. Okay, so again, right now we're still in sort of the massing stage of the project. Not really going into details with number of garbage bins and everything else, but basically within this portion within here, I would suspect there'll be a pickup and drop off at this point, and then a turnaround, and then people can leave. That's sort of a little bit further down the line during site plan approval.
Right. Okay. So that likely, though, in this massing would extend into the setback to the back towards the bank.
That would be right. Well, the turnaround is in here.
Oh, the inside the build.
Yeah, that's that's the turnaround there. Yes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we can show the first floor plan, and maybe that will.
Okay, if I zoom out, I suppose, and then first floor plan. It's the other way around. No. So basically, right, because we can come into here and turn around and then go back out again here, and that way they'd also have access to the main lobby from this side.
Okay, great. Thank you. Can you also describe what commitments this project is making from an environmentally sustainable perspective?
Well, I'm going to start first off by the site plan, actually, that basically the owner actually owns all of this, but out of all of this, the expectation is that really we are only going to be using sort of this piece of the site right here. Oh, sorry, even smaller, that piece of site right here, and everything else is being left natural. I don't believe we're counting it in as amenity space or anything else. It's just to be natural. The only part really outdoors that we're using is the trail and the connection to it here. That I believe everything else is to be natural. And the only other part of which is going to be changed that's not natural would be sort of right in here within that line. With the building itself, sorry, it's something just our architecture company does, is that we're now going really sort of beyond building code with our projects. Now we are, I think it's a 25% greater than, I think it's like MNECB or something like that, of a standard that we're going to. Basically, I would say that it will be the best insulated, most efficient building in Dundas. That would be the way I would describe it right now. Have we gone into whether it's going to be geothermal or solar or anything right yet? No, that has not become part of it yet. I would say probably 50% of my projects do become geothermal, as it's tending to be a very, it works well for builders. And the person that I'm looking at to be building this, all of their buildings that they've done in the past 10 years are geothermal, but I can't guarantee that.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Those are my questions.
Jennifer Sisson?
Thanks. All of my questions have been answered. Thank you.
Joey?
Thanks, David. I understand a cultural heritage impact assessment is not required. I'm wondering why it would have been required. Is it to address the impact to the open space area? And is this considered a cultural landscape?
To answer that, no, it was because it's close to downtown Dundas, and that was what it was in the FC comments. And when we were looking for consultants, one of our consultants actually reached out because we're a little bit away from the downtown core of Dundas, and then the CHIO was waived.
Okay, that makes sense. Also, I'm trying to understand the creek trail. Is it currently on the south side of the creek?
Oh, sorry, do you want me to share again? Here we go, share.
I don't know if you're showing that level of detail in your drawings. I'm just trying to understand.
Okay, can everybody see a piece of Google Earth here?
Yep.
Yes. Okay, so my understanding is that, and you can see the little hand, I'll zoom in even more, is that the trail basically winds its way through these trees right now, and then it joins into our site right about here, and then it comes out and goes across here to, oh, I got people in the way here, and then joins over here into the park. So with that, the trail that I was describing here enters about here, comes into our site, goes across the creek, and then goes down Mill Street to the park. So we're not changing or altering, proposing to change or alter that trail at all. Actually, we want to embrace it, which is why we're wanting to have an entrance here, so that if people are going for bikes, they can actually come down to a nice 2-story entrance, and they can join into the trail system as it currently exists. Sorry, the really nice turning thing does not exist right now. The trail just sort of comes out, does this, and goes
but
through.
You're not moving the trail at all?
I don't believe we moved the trail at all.
Was there a current bridge there that you're replacing?
No, there's a bridge right here which exists and we're
Okay.
retaining. And that is the bridge which my understanding is the city does not want to take over the maintenance of. So they don't want ownership of that.
So are you assuming ownership of that bridge? And
We
or-
already,
So sorry, the owner currently owns the entire site, right? So obviously if we have people coming through the site, it's either going to have to be done through a change of ownership or as an easement or
yeah.
as a road allowance or some legal manner that the public can be allowed to cross through the owner's property, right?
Okay.
So my understanding is that, sorry, and right now, such transfers of lands or easements or things like that is still yet to be negotiated. And I just heard today that the city does not wish to actually own the bridge.
Okay.
Just to just to clarify, I think where your cursor was a little bit further to the west. So I think the street where the bridge is, so you can see the property with the roof on it, which is closer to the yellow line.
Sort of the yellow
Can we
line.
maybe see it on a site plan, a proposed site plan? Maybe that'll make a bit more.
That is the proposed site plan. That's Google Earth.
Yeah. No, but maybe it's easier to understand this.
Sure, on Google Earth or site plan?
It looks like there's a
Proposed site
contradiction
plan.
between the plans that were just shown by the city. It appeared to show the trail being entirely on the south side, and it looks like an actual fact right now it does go over onto Mill Street to the north and then across.
So from the city's perspective, I think it's an informal, like the way we have it on the subject lands is like an informal path. I think people come out of the treed area and they kind of just use the parking in the paved area on the subject lands. So I think this, from the city's perspective, we're willing to work with the applicant on where to locate the trail. And I think we've come to terms with, we don't want the bridge, but the bridge can be used from an easement perspective. And the trail can continue along the north side of the property. So what the applicant has described is true. I just think when the cursor was being shown, I think we were a little bit further to the west. So it was a little maybe confusing because we weren't pointing directly to where the bridge actually is located, but it is there. Yep. And that is, I think, the intent of the project.
Is the bridge purely pedestrian or
Yes.
currently? And is it proposed to continue to be purely pedestrian or
and bikes?
Vehicular?
And bikes.
And bikes, not cars.
Yeah. Not cars, no.
Okay.
I have a picture of the bridge if you would like to see it. Like a picture of the entrance of the bridge.
Beautiful.
Joey, do you have any other questions?
I do have one last one. In the presentation, it was noted that the site characteristics inform the design of the building, and I'd like to understand how that is the case.
Wayne, would you like to speak a little bit more?
Sure. Okay. Well, in the package, basically, I had to try to figure what kind of metrics that propose to use to do this, and so obviously the creek obviously was, we're not going to be touching the creek. That there's a quite a slope to the south. Obviously, we can't touch that. And then from there, and then it was actually looking at some metrics such as shadow study. And so we basically almost call it Shadow Mountain to figure what can we do that still meets the requirements of shadow study. And then we did angular plane. And I think you can see the review of the angular plane to see where that works. I've got it touching just a pinch, like the parapets touch just a little bit on the east side. So I was creating a set of metrics.
I don't want to cut you off. I think I misunderstood.
Yeah.
I understood that the characteristics of the site, the quality of the site, the richness of the natural landscape informed the design of the building. I'm not looking for like basic stuff and a checklist. I'm looking for inherent design quality, high quality architecture that is informed by the characteristics and quality of the landscape. Was that part of the design process? How do you do that? If you can't answer, that's fine. I'm just wondering because I was a bit confused by that statement.
Okay, to a certain degree I can, but it may not be right what you're looking for. So basically am I muted? No. Okay. So for instance, on this, like if we're putting this building along a street front or a place where we should have eyes on the street, the ground floor, second floor would be a podium with full of glass and activities and things like that. In this particular case, the building is set back to a place where really you can never get to because there's no trails, there's no amenity areas permitted. The ground 2 floors really on 2 sides of this building are, how can I describe it? They're just there, right? They have no eyes on the street. They have no way of people really even seeing them. I've done a nice podium there, but really that was not part of it. It was just to give something where it's not going to entice people to want to walk outside and go into the trees and go to places that they're not supposed to. And then up above that, really, it's just creating a base middle top to the building as sort of a placeholder for the massing of what we're really talking about right now.
Okay, thank you. Are there other projects similar to this type proposed in the immediate area? Maybe this is a question for Edward or Jennifer.
I can answer that a little bit. There, along, not along Creighton, but along, there's the Amica buildings along along the creek and at Governor's Road, and forgot where it is specifically, but there's similar higher density buildings along that corridor along the creek, so it isn't unknown in Dundas, is what I would say.
And then there's the 4 Spencer Creek buildings, which are along the
That's
creek a little farther down. Yes, which have got sort of the same sort of podium that we're following through as sort of a Dundas kind of podium look.
Okay, thank you. No more questions from me.
Jennifer? Mallard?
I have, most of my questions have been answered, but I have a couple of really sort of dry logistics. I'm assuming that you have determined that firefighting access is from the street and there's no fire truck turnaround required to enter the site? Because none is shown.
Yes, we made sure the entrance was within the 3 to 15 meters from the street to be so that the fire could come from there. Yes.
And then my other question is about the water table, and do you have that information, and is there any impact then on the extent of underground parking proposed?
Okay, from architects, from my point of view, basically I was giving a line stay within this line from the planners. I have done buildings like in downtown Brampton before, and where the certain waterproofings have to be done. And we have to keep the entrances sort of 300 millimeters above the water line at its high point, things like that. So that's usually a process that we have to follow throughout the project.
Yeah, my question was more about the underground water table. Because you're next to a creek and
okay, so that's an interesting. So basically, almost all Hamilton Mountain is, for instance, you're in the water table. When we're building, we now have to do what's called bathtubing of projects. Almost every project I'm doing is bathtubing.
Okay.
This would be no different if it's next to a creek, Lake Ontario, or a Hamilton Mountain. Yes.
Okay.
Just to reiterate Wayne's point, during the design of the building, we did do an erosion hazard assessment. So that kind of informed
the line.
The lines, yeah.
Yes.
But we're still waiting on the 100-year floodplain.
Yeah, so as part of the application process, there is a hydro-G required, and that they're in consultation with the HCA. Yep.
Okay. I have no other questions. Thanks.
The only question I guess I have is just some clarification of what kind of transit service is available on the site, or is there any other expansion of the transit land in that area?
From my recollection, there's transit. There's no transit along Creighton Road. There is some in downtown Dundas along King Street, which is within 500 meters of the subject lands, but there is no transit service along Creighton Road itself.
Which is why we have proposed a 1.2 parking ratio, and I believe we're at about 0.75 on the bikes. We're not going for sort of the 0.7 numbers, which I'm seeing more even on Hamilton Mountain now.
Okay, I think we'll turn it over to the panelists for feedback. And the first is Dana.
Thanks, everybody. I just want to take a minute to commend you on a great presentation and for answering our questions. I do think it's great that you are looking at housing for seniors and not-for-profit. One of the questions that we were asked as part of our panel is, does this successfully build upon the established height and massing and scale of the neighborhood? And at this time, I'm not so sure that the application successfully achieves that. My main concern is with how the building kind of fits within the site and with the community. Right now, there's a lot of at-grade and above-grade parking that is, that wraps or is close to the trail, the open space on the road. And I just think that, like as a design exercise, that shouldn't be the case and that units or amenity space should be opening towards either the trail and the road. So it's possible that maybe the parking ratio is too high. I don't know if that's something that you for certain require or if there's a way to amend that. And then if not, if you're stuck with that ratio, maybe it's about providing fewer units and then moving the amenity space from the top of the building maybe towards grade so that it can integrate with the trail or the street. In terms of some of the other details, I see that the wind study has shown increased wind in the summer, as well as walking conditions in the winter, particularly at the entrance on the front and the back. My recommendation there is just to make sure that you're mitigating that as much as possible, both through the design of the building and through wind mitigation measures. I had a question as to why the wind study didn't look at the outdoor rooftop amenity. I know this is preliminary and you're at a preliminary stage, but I would suggest that's included and that if you are going to provide amenity space on the roof, that design be taken into consideration around wind mitigation. I also see that there's a heavy preference for 1-bedroom units, and this is maybe possible because now I understand this is for seniors. But maybe take a look at if you are considering other, demographics, maybe look at other mix of units to accommodate some more 2- and 3-bedroom units. That's everything for me. Thank you.
Ted.
Okay, so I'd like to just applaud the intentions to achieve high sustainability on the site. I think we are in a climate crisis, and I think we all have to be leading the way on that front. So love to hear more about the details when you get to that. Coming back to the questions that have been asked, as for the first response, the height and the density don't seem to fit in the neighborhood, in the surrounding context. We're not seeing evidence of that development elsewhere or a strategy to create that kind of height and density. So it feels like it's not connecting with the existing neighborhood in that way as a response to the questions we've been posed. Does it contribute to the connectivity and support modes of public and active transportation? Not entirely sure how the transportation, where the transit is and how that connects, but I think that would be interesting to see. I do think that this site has a great opportunity given its natural assets that can be exploited further. Not seeing a landscape plan and a really detailed site plan of how that would work, I think is something that would be good to be able to properly assess the merits of the project. But I think there's an opportunity to connect on the south so that the arrival at the front of the site can connect to the back of the site where this great amenity is. And then further to that, I certainly think it's great that the public access is continuing to come through the site, but I think that can be taken further to the front side of the building as well, and to actually connect the site for the residents to move around this building to the extent that they can, and not just through the building to the back side of it. I think fundamentally the challenge, one of the large challenges with this project is the parking, the way that's the number perhaps doesn't need to be that high, well over one, ratio of 1, like 1.3. I don't know exactly what it is, but does it need to come out of the ground? It's a 3-story parkade opaque structure to the creek, 2-story on the arrival side, which really has no transparency or animation or vitality to the surrounding context. So you really, it's a 3-story opaque podium, and I think potentially that doesn't need to be the case. If those units could be on the creek side, if we could bring the parking number down so that we don't need to go up with the parking, I think that would make a much better development in this case. And then I think architecturally, there's a there's an intent to differentiate the massing, which is much appreciated. I think it wants to be a lower building. I think it's predominantly stucco, and perhaps that's part of the pro forma of this project. But are there ways to introduce, more materials with a greater longevity and a little more character and design? It's hard to really get a sense of it, given the limited renderings and description of the materials and the details, but would like to see the qualitative aspects of the architecture taken further. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Jennifer Sisson?
David, just before, I'd just like to, there was a question raised with Dana mentioning seniors housing. I think the existing condition has some rentals on there, but I don't believe the proposal is for a nonprofit seniors housing. If the applicant could confirm.
The tenure is not confirmed at this point. We're still working through senior, whether senior housing or not, because that was some of the comments that we did here during our pre-submission meeting as well.
Okay, but it wasn't part of the presentation, so we're just confirming.
Jennifer Sisson.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentations. I agree with the comments so far. Particularly, I'd like to echo Ted's concern over the amount of inactive uses and parking at grade. I'd encourage you to consider moving the residential units down here as you suggested, or even maybe shifting some of the amenity spaces to the ground floor to help activate that floor. Wayne, you made an interesting comment earlier that eyes on the street aren't needed here. I disagree with that. I think passive surveillance around the building is probably as, if not even more important in this, because people will and can get into spaces where they shouldn't be around the building. So at the risk of repeating myself, at the ground floor, we really do need those active uses, particularly where we're facing the trail connection. I think that would really be essential, not only to improving the safety, but also to the success of this development over the long term. I agree it would have been helpful to have the landscape plan to understand the street relationship, excuse me, the street relationship and the public realm design, and it's really difficult to comment on these without that. As you develop this further, I'd really like to see more consideration for at-grade amenity space and thoughtful connections to that existing trail and the pedestrian bridge for greater connectivity to the neighborhood. I do find the current building, it's much closer to the trail, and it kind of creates the impression of not maybe being open to the public, and it's kind of overshadowing it. So I'd encourage you to kind of look at that relationship really closely and make sure that you're creating something there that is contributing to the public realm. I think I did find the visual study helpful and appreciate its inclusion, along with the bike parking you're showing at ground level. But I find that the pedestrian and cyclist circulation really needs further thought here, as the bike storage is currently really don't have any direct access to the trail, and they would have to cross vehicular entrances in any case to get there. Also, as Dana noted, the potential for uncomfortable wind conditions at the northern and western corners, and in particular that trailside entrance, really needs to be mitigated. Overall, I'm happy to see you come forward with this development, and I look forward to seeing it progress further from here. Very much.
Joey?
Thanks, David. Thanks, everyone, for your presentation. The panel spent quite a bit of time asking a lot of questions from the applicants and also the planners, and that typically, tells me that the presentation package is incomplete, or the design is at a point where it's not ready for this panel to kind of bring value to the process. Wayne had mentioned that it's still being masked. So if it's still being masked, it's pre-schematic design, and there are a lot of assumptions that we have to make. And I guess we're left making those assumptions. what I suggest moving forward, and I hope that this panel does see this project again when it is fully developed, is a context drawing, renderings or sections that show the relationship of the proposal to the rest of the neighborhood. Renderings that you've shown are helpful, but renderings are not accurate enough when trying to understand the appropriateness of scale. So also just looking at the stats, there's 10.5 meters is the guidelines versus 39.1, which is proposed. So based on that, for me, this is way too tall. In terms of density, 75 versus 173.6 units per hectare. Again, based on that, this project is much too dense. So I'd have to say that, you know, the development at this point is a bit too much for the site and also for the neighborhood and the larger context. For me, the connection to the public realm, and particularly with the podium, and Ted noted this, is too opaque. And also it seems to be setting up potential further design development as something seen as hostile to the natural setting and also to the larger public realm. So aligning with what the others said, I think if you could rethink that connection to the public realm and make it like a true connection between the residents of this building and also the people who will use the park, I think it'll start helping to make this project more successful in terms of the at-grade connection. That's it for me. Thank you again.
Jennifer Mallard.
Thanks, David, and thanks for your presentation. We've been asked, I think the first question from the city was whether or not we thought this proposal was in alignment with the scale and the character of the neighborhood. And Joey just touched on the stats there. This is more than 3 times the height and more than twice the density per hectare that the zoning allows. This panel sees proposals that exceed the zoning bylaws significantly in areas where there is a lot of transit and where densification makes sense, and there are other projects near proposals that are similarly densified. That's not the case here. There's rich parkland, single family dwellings that appear to be going nowhere. And so if we are asked if this is out of scale and character, I have to say, yes, it is out of scale and character. So I would support abiding by the zoning bylaw here. And we don't always say that. You know, we're pretty sympathetic with densification in other locations. And another point that has been mentioned by my colleagues here, that I think this is a missed opportunity to take advantage of a beautiful site. It's next to parkland, next to a creek, and the current proposal completely denies that setting by having a really opaque podium and no amenity space or no connectivity for the residents to that lovely parkland. So I agree with my colleagues that we'd love to see this project again. I think the site has amazing opportunity for the right approach. Thanks.
I guess I'm not sure I have anything additional to add. Everybody else has taken all the good comments away. I'm in agreement with the general consensus that the project is a little too big, has too much parking, and I think if you do tackle both of those, by simply removing a couple of floors of parking, you will bring your program and your public areas down to grade and be able to solve it. I think that it's a pretty interesting site. It has a lot of potential. I think that you know, your ambitions on a sustainability angle mean that you are probably the kind of developer who's thinking in the sustainability sector to could deliver something exceptional. I agree with the quality of the architecture. I think you could re-examine that maybe at a material level and form, and it would probably be improved if there was a ground level. I think that the access for deliveries and whatnot at the front door, drop off, Uber Eats, all of those kind of things, I don't think it's at all convincing. I think you agree. I think you have to make that work a little bit better. And all of those comments about, you know, engaging with the landscape, as everybody's commented on, I think is fundamental to delivering something exceptional that the site warrants. I think it's disappointing that there wasn't a landscape plan for the site for us to examine, and I think if that was maybe on the table, that some of the comments that we were observing, your landscape architect might have challenged how this is developed to date. So look forward to future development, but I think it would be significantly improved by a reduction in the scale of what you're trying to put on the site. I don't know if you have any further questions of the panel.
None from my end. Wayne or Mike?
I've been interesting about you know, as far as amenities, right? You know, it's almost something that we have to talk to the owner about, whether he'd be willing to go along with it to actually bring sort of the bike trail, let's say south of the building, or even if that would be even permitted. I don't even know if it would be permitted by the 37 jurisdiction. I'm getting Rita shaking your head that no, she doesn't think it'll be permitted. Okay.
We've had park comments saying that they would rather want all public access to be north of Spencer Creek.
I don't think we're necessarily driving the public onto the south side of the site. I just think that even within your offering amenities to the tenants themselves, that there is a huge opportunity to leverage the qualities of the site, as Jennifer and others have said, to deliver something even more exceptional for the users. You have units that look across the second floor. Maybe the amenity should be at the second floor, and that should be a closer to ground, closer to the tree kind of amenity that wouldn't have some of the wind issues maybe that you get into when you get on top of a taller building, or maybe splitting it. I just think that it's just unfortunate what's happened with the parking, driving your residents up to the third level and creating those blank facades on three sides almost of your development is just of real lost opportunity on a pretty special a site. There aren't too many there, and I'll also say honestly, I looked at this project. It's very similar to one that I see on the highway up near Barrie. I don't know if it's the same, whether it's one of yours just north of Barrie, but it seems like it's kind of a formulaic solution that we've seen in other locations, and this is maybe a bit about what Joey was driving at. What is, when you say you're developing something that's specific to this site and whatnot, if other than like using it as the massing development criteria in terms of can't go higher than this or that, like really sort of looking at that site and the specialness, views to the river and or the creek and the lower level of the building, whether that couldn't be inspirational at a material level and a character level within the development. It seems like a little bit more mining what you have, I guess, just sort of seeing what you can find as clues within your own site. I think that you've got something pretty special to work with there, and I think it would be unfortunate if you weren't able to maximize the potential of that. So,
yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think we're none.
All right, well, if that's everything, thank you everyone for attending our design review panel presentation for today. That will conclude. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.